Good morning, everyone! On this blessed day, I want to try my hand at mass producing items. In this case, it will be phone stands. Reason for it is because I have a lot of offcuts. These are gorgeous pieces of wood. However, they are too small for me to comfortably use them on a table saw and not risk losing every single finger in my possession. So instead of cutting it into tiny squares and turning it into a cutting board, I chose to turn every single piece of good offcut I have into phone stands. This is first time where I try to make multiple items all at once instead of focusing on one item at a time. As the first step, I took all the pieces, and for some of the longer ones, I cut them into smaller pieces since no one wants to have a really long phone stand. Although I did leave one chunky piece of walnut, and you will see what I do with it next week. Following that, the next step was to bring it to routing table. As the first part, I decided to round all the corners. Yes, I can round corners using 60 grit on sander, but for this I wanted each piece to have a uniform and perfectly rounded corners, which is why I used roundover bit here. Although this does look simple, I'm not a fan of using router table. I kind of wish I had a palm router to do this. I know it makes no difference whatsoever, but I do enjoy holding the router in my hands. For the next step, however, using router table was the only way. This was the step to make the groove where the phone will rest. One thing I noticed is that a lot of phone holder manufacturers do not account for the fact that people use phone cases. So I chose to make sure that my grooves are a little bit wider. For first pass, I used dovetail bit in order to create a lip where the phone will rest so it doesn't pop out. I was quite stunned by the volume of sawdust this made. I know, I made a phone stand in the past, but when you try to mass make something, amount of sawdust seems staggering. Speaking of, if you know good means of getting rid of all that sawdust so it doesn't fly everywhere, please do let me know. This was just absolutely ridiculous. And for the second pass, I used the straight bit. This allowed me to widen the groove I'm making so that the phone with a thick case can comfortably fit in there. I had to do quite a few passes in order to line up my bit to be the exact same height as my dovetail bit was at. The depth was set to 5/8 of an inch, but some fine tuning was still necessary to make sure to hit it just right to not show that the two different bits were being used. Now that all the pieces were completed, it was time to put some finishing touches. So sanding began, and I was overjoyed by the thought of it. But this time I started at 120 grit and went all the way up to 800 grit. I skipped lower grits because the corners were already rounded and I didn't want to take too much off aggressively there. The point was to achieve smoothness, not to shape it more than it already was. Unlike the part with the router table where everything was streamlined and thus I saved time, with sanding no time could be shaven off. Not to mention that I enjoy sanding. Why the heck would I bother shaving time off of it? So I kept sanding. Each piece took me a total of 25 minutes of sanding to go from 120 to 800 grit. I spent a total of 4 hours sanding and had a blast and loved every single second of it. To me, it felt like only 30 minutes passed until I realized that I was way past my bedtime. So I went to sleep and didn't bother oiling them. In the morning, I woke up, gave it another round of sanding at 800 grit and then started on oiling process. For this, I used tung oil. Tung oil is still food safe and is perfect for something like a phone stand. It does give a slight yellow tinge to items, but it does bring out the color in wood fibers. I oiled a total of 2 times, once in the morning and once in the evening, and by that point it seems like the stands had enough to drink. A total of 11 phone stands were made in a period of 5 hours. Would I do this again? Probably not. I like getting personal with each piece of wood I work on, and by trying to mass produce multiple items at once, it feels like I simply cannot fully invest into each item and put a piece of my soul in it. Is it more profitable? Absolutely. But in my opinion, it is not so much about profit as it is about trying to imprint a piece of one's soul into each item made. It just feels more personal working on one item at a time. Let me know what you guys thought of this video. Did you like it? What else would you like to see? If you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it, please leave a like and maybe consider subscribing. I try to release videos every week. If you have any comments at all or just want to say hi, that's also very welcome. I promise to say hi too. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will see you next week. Bye bye!